Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here with my spoiler review and discussion for To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. So normally for my reviews I include a spoiler-free section at the beginning, but in this case the spoiler-free review is going to be done by my lovely friend Amy from Blonde and Bookish. She is the one who I was buddy reading this book with, and I had so much fun doing that with her. I will link her video down below as soon as it is up. I highly recommend that you guys watch that video and check out Amy's channel because she is so much fun and I really love how thoughtfully she talks about all of the books she reads. So if you guys haven't read To Kill a Kingdom yet, then come back to this video after you have done it. Until then, you can watch Amy's spoiler-free video and decide if it's something you want to pick up. But the rest of you guys who have read the novel, let's get into my spoilery discussion and thoughts. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the characters. I really did enjoy Elian and Lyra. I think they were both very strong, very well-written protagonists, and I enjoyed following both of them. I think I prefer Lyra a little bit more because I'm just a sucker for mermaids or sirens or anything like that, but I did really come to appreciate Elian and the fact that he wasn't just a spoiled prince. There was actually a lot of depth to him and there was a reason for all of the things he was doing. I will say, though, both of the main characters were occasionally inconsistent, kind of for the sake of the plot. I can't get over the fact that Elian just had no idea who Lyra was. Like, when he picks up this girl in the middle of the ocean who has red hair, he doesn't think like, oh, you know that famous red-headed siren that I've been chasing for basically my whole life? Maybe they're related? Maybe I should be a little suspicious about this? I mean, he doesn't trust Lyra, so that's something, and I do understand that Lyra looked very different. I don't think humans knew that sirens could turn into people sometimes, or they could be turned into humans. So I guess it sort of makes sense, but I just don't understand why somebody who was so naturally suspicious as Elian was would pick up a girl, a mysterious girl who speaks the language of the sirens, in the middle of the ocean with no boats around, and it never even crosses his mind that maybe she could actually be a siren. And then Lyra also had some character inconsistencies to me as well, because we see these flashbacks with her. We're introduced to her as this very ruthless killer where all of her hearts that she has are buried under her floor, and she sounds like a very fierce, violent, not really connected to her emotions kind of person or kind of character. And then we get these flashbacks to before she was like that, and we really see more of her early life and her development and kind of how she grew into the fierce character that we see at the beginning of the book's action. And I did like that. Contrary to what I normally feel about flashbacks, I thought those were well done and interesting, and I do think they added to the story overall, and especially to understanding Lyra. But I still feel like some elements of the flashbacks were not foreshadowed enough. It seems as if Lyra turned from a sweet little siren girl into a cold-blooded killer over the span of, I don't know, was it a year or something, or even shorter than that? And I just feel like we kind of got gaps between the nice character she was when she was very young, and then we're told that her mother really forced her into this mold of being the perfect siren, of being this perfect killer. And then we don't actually see that transition happen. We just go from point A to point C with nothing in between, and I didn't really like that. It didn't feel as well developed as I would hope, because that is a pretty big change for a character, so I would have liked to see that explored more. I'm gonna mention some of the side characters real quick that I was just not a fan of. Yukiko, I think that's her name. I just didn't really care for her. I thought the reveal about her being the princess, I was like, okay, I mean, I didn't expect that. That was kind of surprising, I guess, because I didn't know there was a missing princess. But I just didn't find any of the scenes with her interesting. I didn't really care about her bargain with Elian. I didn't really care about her coming along on the adventure or them meeting up with her. Basically everything that happened on the Ice Kingdom Island I wasn't that interested in, which I'll kind of get into later, but I just didn't feel like Yukiko was necessary. I thought it just sort of added some extra time to the plot, and it kind of added sort of a romantic rival, but not really, because we knew she wasn't going to end up with him. It was just, I felt like Yukiko was kind of an unnecessary character, and the same goes for the pirate guy, or the really bad one named Rycroft, I think his name was. I just felt like he didn't need to be in the book. I did really like the scene where Lyra saves Elian's life, and she finally, we see her fighting, and she's really good, and she's really fierce, and you can make that connection between Lyra as a siren and Lyra as a human. It was really interesting to see how her risking her life, almost dying to protect Elian, really changed that relationship and changed the way the crew thought of her. I thought that was really kind of interesting and cool, but I feel like we could have had a similar scene without bringing in this whole, like, subplot thing with Rycroft. And he didn't even feel like a fully developed villain. Like, basically they take him out, no problem, but they don't kill him, they just kind of leave him on their ship, even though I feel like that's gonna cause problems later. I just didn't like his inclusion in the book, really. Also, I want to mention that Queen Galena, that very minor character who we just see briefly, I forget what kingdom she's in charge of, but I really liked her. I thought her backstory was super interesting, and how, like, the way that all of the myths about the royal families have been kind of twisted in ways to make them sound really good and really impressive, and really they can be curses, or they can be very ordinary things even. And I thought that was so interesting, seeing how her kingdom was affected by this curse on her family, like her royal line and everything. So I thought Galena had potential to be such an interesting ally with Elian and his, like, crew, but we didn't really do anything with her either. I guess that's my main problem with all these side characters, is they felt unnecessary. They felt kind of underdeveloped, and like they were just there to add page time. Except for Galena, who got barely any page time, but we're kind of meant to believe she was really important. Even though, in the end, she really just got Elian out of his marriage deal with Yukiko. Although I did like that because, you know, none of us really, I don't think, wanted Elian to marry her, but whatever. I also have some thoughts on the central romantic relationship between Elian and Lyra. I was a little disappointed. I was hoping for so much more. I did like their interactions in the beginning where they're really, like, bickering back and forth and they're not trusting each other, and then as they slowly start to respect each other as opponents and as allies, I did like that development, but I just wish we got more scenes with them, or like there was more between them starting to recognize each other as potential friends or romantic interests, but like between that and them realizing they had feelings for the other. And I feel like for Lyra or for Elian, we didn't really see that gradual shift in how they felt about each other. And it didn't feel underdeveloped in any way. It wasn't like insta-love or anything. It just, I wish we had gotten more time with them, because I was really looking forward to seeing how Alexandra Christo handled that romantic relationship between these two people who have been brought up to hate everything about the other person. Also, I feel very cheated with that kiss scene. I feel like kiss scenes in general are sort of getting harder to write, or maybe it's just getting harder to impress me with them, because I've read a lot of them at this point, and when all is said and done, there's not a lot of different things you can do with them, I guess. And it didn't even happen on page. So we have all this romantic buildup, and then it's sort of just, the focus shifts away from Elian and Lyra as they, like, kiss in the snow or whatever, and I just didn't love that. I felt a little bit cheated, like I said. Alright, moving into some plot stuff. Again, I had a lot of mixed feelings. There were some things I loved and some things that I felt really disappointed in. I'm gonna talk about the ending first because that's what really stands out to me. I love the fact that Lyra did not stay a human, that it wasn't like the Little Mermaid Disney movie where, like, she does live happily ever after, but she basically leaves her home and everything she knows and all the people she cares about, except for this one human guy, behind. I really like that Lyra had this balance of, like, she does still live in the sea, but Elian comes to visit her, and she can sort of go back and forth now between being a human and being a siren, and neither of them are completely separate lives anymore. I did really like that. Some other things about the ending I wasn't as much of a fan of. Like, I thought the end battle scene was just kind of like, okay, and again, I'm not a huge fan of battles in general. I just don't find them interesting to read about, so maybe that was part of it. But I just wasn't that impressed by the battle. I felt like the Sea Queen's, like the other sirens and mermaids' betrayal of the Sea Queen and sort of deciding to support Lyra, while that was great, I feel like it happened a little too easily. Like, it seems unlikely to me that there were absolutely no sirens in the whole kingdom who genuinely enjoyed being brutal and killing people. And maybe that sounds awful, but I just felt like it should have been a little bit more difficult, even if there were more time in between Lyra calling them to her side and then all of the sirens deciding to go with Lyra against the Sea Queen. Even if all of them had decided to make that switch, it would have felt a lot more realistic if there had been more time in between that. Because, like, imagine somebody shows up and just tells you that your entire way of life is wrong or, like, unnecessary and there's a better way to do it. Even if you're 100% on board with this other kind of living, it might take a little while to adjust to it or to like work through how you actually feel about this other ruler. Maybe I'm getting too picky, but that was something that I noticed. Just like a general plot note, I was not really prepared for how much traveling there was going to be in this book, and at least on the back of my copy, it doesn't really say anything about like a sea voyage or the fact that they're going to be on the ship for the majority of the book. And I knew that Lyra was going to become a human, but I guess I had just assumed like most of the action would take place on land with Lyra adjusting to the human world, and I guess I just didn't know going in. And that kind of worked against this book for me because, as I have said many times before, I'm not a fan of journey books. It takes a lot for me to be completely interested in a story that's basically just moving from place to place. And even on ships, like pirate ships, which is, you know, more exciting than a regular road trip, I just wasn't feeling it. I felt like there was too much travel, too much time spent on the ice island, like Pagos or whatever. I thought that whole part was just kind of boring with like getting the crystal and like trying to convince the royal family, and just, I didn't like that whole chunk of the book. I really, really loved the scenes with Lyra as a siren and with her and Elian like interacting. And even just visiting some of the other kingdoms I really loved, and I just wish there had been more of a balance of time on the ship and then maybe some time with Lyra and the other characters actually on land and doing things besides sailing. And I really loved all of the like mythological elements, like the backstory was woven into the story I think really well, like seeing the history of the sirens and mermaids and how that interacted with the humans. I thought that was really cool, and for the most part I felt like it was not info-dumpy at all. I do think that some of the plot reveals, like the things about the crystals and the backstory, like specifically relating to the sea goddesses Kato or Keto, her crystal, I felt like those were kind of confusing. Actually, Amy and I were messaging back and forth while we were buddy reading this, and we were both kind of confused trying to figure out like which crystal was which and like why a particular character wanted it or like what it could be used for. Some of it was, I think, a little too vague, but overall I did like the world building and how that interacted with the mythology of this world. So altogether, To Kill a Kingdom was kind of a mixed bag for me. There were some things I loved, there were some things I felt could have been done better. Overall, I did really enjoy it, I do recommend it, but it's not quite the spooky or vicious siren book I was hoping for. I gave To Kill a Kingdom 3.75 stars. Okay everybody, so those are all of my spoiler thoughts and kind of my discussion on To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. Please let me know what you guys thought of the book if you have read it. And again, be sure to check out Amy's spoiler-free review, which I will link as soon as it is posted. I had so much fun buddy reading this with her, and I highly recommend you check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!